Alright, just so I can mention food in this. I recently found out that I really like Mexican breakfast cereal. Anywho, as you can see from the title of this video, I'm here to talk to you about Namco's new 3D fighting game Soul Calibur 4 for PS3 and Xbox 360, which I have the PS3 version of, and which is actually the fifth game in the series since it started out on PS1 as Soul Edge. Now, I myself am a huge fighting game nerd, and just because you know what wave dashing is, don't think that you are too, because if you don't know what any of these phrases mean, or at least which one I made up, then frankly, you don't get to argue with me. Now, while trying to make my review for this game, I found my train of thought hitting a lot of pennies on the track, so allow me to get a few things off my chest first. 1. Calibur is spelled wrong. 2. I don't give a crap about Street Fighter 4. 3. Smash Brothers is a 2D fighter, not a 3D one, and I was disappointed in Brawl. And now I'm going to have to add piranhas to my fanboy moat now, aren't I? 4. Damn you, George Lucas! Damn you to hell! Am I the only one who is pissed off that there are not one, not two, but 3 Jedis in a game that has absolutely nothing to do with Star Wars? I mean, what? Was George Lucas not happy enough with his own complete monopoly on an indestructibly popular series? And the new one, who doesn't even have a name, is the main character from a Star Wars game that's not even out yet, so he's basically just a walking advertisement. And while that concept itself doesn't really bother me, in fact I thought of it myself long ago, it's not another Namco game or a game that has anything to do with Soul Calibur that's being plugged. It's Star Wars. Since when did Star Wars need any help being advertised? You might as well be fighting Ronald McDonald. 5. Closer to topic. One of the things about reviewing a well-made fighting game is that you really have to get down into the trenches of the high-level play and all the nuances of balance and counters and combos and mix-ups and blah 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 in order to give it a real review. Otherwise you end up getting a review that's only for casual players and button mashers and end up publishing guides like the Brady Games Soul Calibur 2 walkthrough with such expert advice as don't bother blocking. And while I can't say I've mastered the game, I do like to consider myself a decent player, and I do know what I'm talking about here. And finally, 6, while I have nothing against 3D fighting games, I clearly prefer 2D ones, specifically the new breeds of evolved 2D fighters that are out nowadays, like Guilty Gear, which I freaking worship. There's also the fact that Arc System's new Sprite Fighter BlazBlue is by far the biggest thing on my radar right now, since I imported Disgaea 3 months ago. And frankly, if I had a choice between getting a finished copy of BlazBlue right now and eating you, then hand me a damn fork. But when comparing 2D fighters to 3D fighters, I find that in 3Ds, in some attempt at being realistic, you die very quickly. Since in Soul Calibur you have 240 HP and attack strength averages around 30 damage with the clock set being 60 seconds on default, whereas in Guilty Gear you have 420 health with the same damage ratio, 90 seconds on the clock, and a system where you take continually less damage. Though the reason you die so fast in 3Ds is because it's used to balance the extremely limited comboing ability that they give you, which is one of the big reasons I prefer 2D, because while in a good 3D you can still do a third of life bar of damage in 3 button presses, in a good 2D you'll have to work a lot harder to get that kind of damage in a big fancy combo or spend a bunch of whatever super meter you have. There's also the fact that 2Ds are quite a bit easier to get into and learn than 3Ds, because while 2Ds have focus on normal and special moves, 3Ds always have each character with an enormous laundry list of mostly one-shot attacks, and serves for a lot of picky control confusion. For example, I wanted to push 2A to do slightly different poke attack number 8, but I accidentally pushed 1A or 3A for pokes 14 and 23, or I pushed 2A but I pushed it too hard for big, slow, crappy attack that gets me punched in the face. But anyway, while my tastes are better suited by Deuce Dementia, as I said, I don't have anything against 3D fighters, and if I had to play one, I would certainly pick Soul Calibur, so I think it's about damn time I got onto reviewing the game. Now then, for those of you who are new to the scene, let me explain the basics. And don't trust the instruction booklet because there's a typo on page 12 and that crap about being able to guard low attacks while standing is bull. The theme behind Soul Calibur is that each character uses a different kind of martial arts weapon to fight with, which is a concept I always liked. There are 4 main buttons, A, B, K, and G. A is for horizontal attacks, B is vertical attacks, K is for kicks, and G is guard. The idea being that there is supposed to be a sort of rock, paper, scissors relationship between horizontals, verticals, and sidestepping. Don't think that it's like the Pokemon types, though, because while horizontals beat sidestepping any day of the week, dodging a vertical takes a noticeable amount of timing to pull off, and trying to clash a vert through a hori is damn near impossible to do on purpose. And perhaps Pokemon wasn't a good example for this. Besides sidestepping to make the game 3D, there is also the trademarked 8-way run feature when you hold a direction that allows your character to move in full 3D and gives them new attacks while you're doing it. For a parry system, there are guard impacts, which by pushing forward or backward in guard, you can attempt to deflect an opponent's attack and gain a momentary advantage, though if you miss the timing, you'll be wide open, so it's mostly for high-level play. Now, for anyone who's already involved in the Soul Calibur scene, I'm sure you're all waiting for me to address the big new features of the game, those being the armor system and soul gauge. Now, the soul gauge takes the form of an orb next to your health bar and serves the purpose of adding instant kills into the game. Scratch that. Adding another form of instant kill since there's already ring outs. The way it works is that as you continually guard attacks, the orb, which starts out blue, will gradually turn red, while doing damage to your opponent will cause it to turn blue again. When the gauge is low, your health bar will start flashing, and if you guard too many attacks, your character will get soul crushed, which involves their guard being broken and getting stunned for a second. While your opponent is stunned from this, you can push all 4 buttons, which are hotkeyed to just one, and your character will automatically go into a cutscene attack called a critical finish that ends the match right there. Now, for a feature as potentially broken as this, the balance all lies in the execution, and in this case the balance is that the soul gauge takes forever to break. Added to the fact that it heals when you do damage, in order to actually pull off a critical finish in battle, your opponent pretty much has to tape down the guard button and walk out of the room. So any competent opponent will be able to keep the gauge from breaking, and any incompetent one will die before it breaks. So if you ever get killed by a critical finish, then consider yourself owned. As for the finishes themselves, I wasn't really impressed by them. Sure, they're full of shiny graphics, but they're only about 5 seconds long, and I found a lot of the animations to be lacking imagination. Plus, some are just lame, like Mitsurugi and Cassandra's. The other new feature is the armor system. What this involves is that your character is now classified as wearing head, body, and leg equipment, and after taking enough hits to that area of their body, their armor will be broken, and further hits to that area will do extra damage. I actually thought this idea sounded pretty cool, but once again, its value lies in the execution. And while it's not that hard to break off someone's armor, with bigger attacks doing it faster, and by the way, soul crushing automatically does it, the damage increase after losing your gear is only about 10%, which in a game where you can easily kill someone in 5 attacks anyway doesn't really amount to much. Now, the usefulness of both of these new features is aided by the fact that they last throughout the entire match rather than just the round, but still, while I do appreciate the developers trying to, develop the game system, which most developers don't, the fact remains that these new features are executed in such a watered-down fashion that while they don't hurt the game, they're really just decorative more than anything else and don't really have significant effect on the gameplay. As for the visual aspect, what do you want me to say? It's a PS3 game. Of course the graphics are great, not that that has any effect on the game quality. And while the artists for the game try really hard to make everything seem as epic and stylized as possible, I never really liked the character design in Soul Calibur that much, which does have something to do with the fact that with the exception of the one new character Hilda, who apparently listened to my armor rant, every female in the game has the fashion sense of a prostitute and completely refuses to wear a bra. Though I do appreciate Hilda's wardrobe, and I can't deny a sense of satisfied justice when I use her spear to impale the hell out of Ivy and every douche nozzle who just makes a crate character out of a chick in their undies. So to address an issue that should have been covered sooner, I play Maxi, because nunchucks are awesome and I too impersonate Elvis. I mean have pointed eyebrows. And if anything just popped into your head about being broken or cheap, then it is official. You are a noob. And it's not my fault if you can't find the guard button. Now, there has been a lot of bitching about character balance in Soul Calibur, which largely comes from dying so fast, but trust me when I say that the game becomes far more balanced the more you know how to play it. And as far as Maxi goes, I love his sexy new 3B to new right outer B to new right cross B, and that his 3A goes into behind lower now, with behind lower A going to left inner and left inner A doing his old elbow string. Delicious. Anyway, and while there are always tier lists, it doesn't have anywhere near the mockery of fairness that any shonen-based game has. I mean, in Naruto Ultimate Ninja 3, which I imported long ago, QB Naruto has a long-range, unblockable, infinite combo that goes, do his throw. Now keep doing it. Now then, as for the modes the game offers, it's got the only 3 modes that matter, Arcade, Versus, and Training, and while Versus mode has the option of changing enemy difficulty, Arcade mode, weirdly enough, does not. Versus mode involves local and of course online mode, which for me is an absolute godsend, since one of the drawbacks to being a social outcast among social outcasts is that you can't find anyone to play games with. And while complaining about the online mode would make me feel like a spoiled brat, the critic in me has to do it. For one, you'd better make your own room when you play online, because 3/4 of the time you pick custom match, and every single time you pick quick match you just get a message that says this room is full. And on ranked matches, while it has become standard practice to punish disconnectors by having them lose the match automatically, apparently Namco thought a brief talking to was enough, because if you try to cheat by disconnecting during a fight, all you get is the empty threat of a fake warning message that says you will receive a penalty, but no penalty ever comes. I'm not sure what's up with that. There's also story mode, which is laughably easy and laughably poorly written, a tower for survival mode, and a character creator where you are free to make whores and your own awkward, ugly versions of copyrighted characters, since that's all anyone ever does. Anyway, while there are a few other points I wanted to make, I'm running out of YouTube time, and that should be adequate for the general review. So in total, despite a few quirks and scuffs in the paint job, Soul Calibur 4 is a great game that is totally rescued by online play. I enjoy playing it, and it's currently my favorite Trey's planar fisticuff simulator. God, I love having a vocabulary. Thank you, and good night.